Hi Year 6 and welcome to your second maths lesson of the week. Now after you've watched this video, you're going to need to go and do the worksheet on Class Dojo. Today we're looking at dividing decimals by integers. So yesterday on our Zoom lesson we looked at multiplying decimals by integers and we looked at really using short multiplication to help us to do that. And today we're going to be looking at dividing decimals by integers. And I know a lot of people at home will probably be really nervous when I say that, but actually this is just like multiplying decimals. We're just going to be using the same techniques that you've been taught earlier in the year, and the only thing you're really going to need to remember is to bring down your bring up your decimal point to the right place. Okay. Today, for a short warm-up, I want you to have a go at question 1 and 2 on here and think about what dividing technique you might use to answer these questions. So have a quick go, or have a quick think about what dividing techniques you could use to answer these questions, and have a go at questions 1 and 2. So pause the video and have a go now. Okay, well done. So I can see that you've clearly all paused the video and had a go, and now let's go through them together. So the first thing you're going to want to do probably is you're going to want to use bus stop, because that's a really good way to divide. If we look at my number here, first you've got to work out what that number is. So I have 3 hundreds, 2 tens, which equals 20, 3 hundreds, which equals 300, and 4 ones, which equals 4. So I've got 324, and I'm dividing that by 3. Now, a really good way to do this then is to use bus stop. So I'm going to put my 3, because that's the number I'm dividing by, on the side of my bus stop. And then I'm going to put the number I'm dividing, 324, in the middle. And then the way to do this is to work out how many 3's go into each number. So how many 3's go into 3? Well, that's 1. Then how many 3's go into 2? Well, that's 0, isn't it? 3 can't fit into 2 because 2's smaller. And then I'm going to carry my 2, or exchange my 2, over next to the 4. So then I'm not going how many 3's go into 4, how many 3's go into 24. And we know that 8 3's go into 24, so your answer will be 108. For the next question, I've already got my whole, haven't I? So my whole here is 645. And then how many times, or how many groups am I going to be splitting my whole into? Well, I'm splitting my whole into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to be splitting my 645 into 5 groups. So if we use the same method we used up here, and I've placed my bus stop correctly, how many 5's go into 6? Well, I know that's going to be 1. And then how many do I have left over from 5 to 6? Well, I've got 1 left, so I'm going to exchange my 1 next to my 4. And then how many 5's go into 14? Well, I know 2 5's equals 10. And then I've got 4 left over from 10 to 14. So I'm going to put that 4 next to my 5. And then how many 4's go into 45? Well, how many, 5's go into 45? And the answer is 9. 9 5's go into 45, giving you the answer of 129. Okay, so we've really used bus stop today, and this is a method we're really going to have to look at when we're doing our dividing decimals by our whole numbers. So let's move on and have a quick look at what we're going to be doing today. Here's my first question. Well, Mr. Rose is building some garden furniture. His plank of wood is 3.96 meters long, and he needs to cut it into 3 equal pieces. How long is each piece? Well, if I'm thinking about Mr. Rose and that furniture, I know that he has a plank that's 3.96 centimeters long, and I'm going to be cutting it, so dividing it into how many pieces? 3. So that's going to be my sum there. 3.96 divided by 3. Then, if I'm looking on my place value chart, I've represented my 3.96 here. And I'm going to be splitting each section into groups of 3. So I'll write the number at the top. So how many groups of 3 is in the ones column? Well, I know that 3 ones go into 1 group of 3. So I've got 1 group of 3 here. In the tenths, how many tenths can I split into groups of 3? Well, I've got 1 group of 3, 2 groups of 3, 3 groups of 3. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to do as well. What do I need to bring down, do you think? My decimal point. And then in my hundredths, I've got one group of 3 in my hundredths, 2 groups of 3. So there we go. I've made my answer, haven't I? I've split my 3.96 into groups of 3, and my answer is 1.32. And that's how I can do it in a place value chart. But let's have a think how I might do it on my bus stop. So let's have a look at the same. How many groups of 3 go into 3? Well, I know it's going to be 1 here, so I'm going to put my answer of 1. And then how many groups of 3, and then what do I need to remember to do? I need to bring up my decimal point, because that's where my decimal point needs to go. And then how many groups of 3 go into 9? Well, I know that actually 3 3s go into 9. Then how many 3s go into 6? Well, that's 2. And as you can see, I've got the same answer, 1.32. And that's the same answer I got when I did it on a place value grid. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Well, if I'm looking at my next question, here I'm doing 4.08 divided by 4, because I can see that from my bus stop. 4.08 divided by 4. And here you can see that I could use the same technique on a place value grid. So I've represented 4.08 on a place value grid. And then how many groups of 4 in my ones? Well, I've got 1 group of 4. Then I need to remember to bring down my decimal point, because I'm working with decimals. How many groups of 4 in my tenths? Well, that's 0, isn't it? I've got 0 tenths, so I've got 0 groups of 4 in my tenths. And then how many in my hundredths? Well, I've got 1, 2 groups of 4 in my hundredths. So my answer is going to be 1.02. And then I can do the same over here. How many 4s go into 4? Well, that's 1. Then I need to remember to bring up my decimal point. And then how many 4s go into 0? Well, that is 0. 0 4s in 0. And then how many 4s go into 8? Well, that's 2 4s make 8, don't they? So there you go. I've got the same answer again, 1.02. And then here it says, should I be writing my answer as 1.2 or 1.02? Well, we know actually that I've got 0 tenths. I've got no tenths, do I, in both of my sections. So it's actually going to be 1.02 meters and not 1.2 meters. So remember that whenever you're writing down your answer at the end, you're recording it clearly. Okay, so for the final question, we're going to really focus on this technique, bus stop. So if you're looking at this one over here, I've got 5.28 and I'm dividing it by 4. So if we're looking at my place value grid very quickly, I'm now splitting my 5.28 into groups of 4. So if we start with my ones, I've got 5 ones, so I can make 1 group of 4. But then I have a 1 here left over, don't I? I have 1 left over. So what I need to then do is I exchange my 1 for how many tenths do you think I exchange a 1? Yeah, that's right. I'd exchange it for 10 tenths, wouldn't I? I'd exchange it for these 10 tenths here. And I'd add these 10 tenths to my 2 tenths that I've already got. So if it says 2 here, 0.2, which is 2 tenths, and I'm adding my 10 tenths from my 1 when I exchange to here. So now I have 12 tenths in all, and I have to divide my 12 into groups of 4. So how can I do that? Well, let's have a quick look. If I'm dividing my 12 into groups of 4, I have 1 group of 4, 2 groups of 4, and 3 groups of 4. Also, one thing I need to remember to do is bring my decimal point. And then finally, my hundredths, I've got 2 groups of 4 in my hundredths. Don't I? I've got 8 hundredths and I've got 2 groups of 4 there. And then if we look at how I do that on using bus stop to divide, that's this method here, how many 4s would go into 5? Well, we know that 1 4 goes into 5, and that, yes, I'd have 1, or my 1 would have to move over. So and that then stands for a 10 in my tenths. So my 1 that's left over then goes to here, doesn't it? Then I put in my decimal point, and then how many 4s don't go into 2 anymore, but into 12, because of my 1 left over from my 1s column. Well, that's 3, isn't it? 3 fours go into 12. And then how many 4s go into 8? That's right, it would be 2. And as you can see, our answers are the same. Now it's your turn to go off and do the sheet. And to really remember how to do it well, I always want you to think, if I'm struggling, I need to be using the bus stop method. So go and have a go at the sheets and give it your best shot. Can't wait to see your work on dividing decimals by integers or whole numbers.